Hey, this is the Brett Davis Show coming to you from Coronado, California. Today I have Tammy Cuthbert Garcia. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Brett. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, thank you for spending the time because I know you're very busy with your own podcast. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
I have a natural health podcast, and it started off about a year ago when I just wanted to bring information to the public about how to stay healthy.
Uh-huh.
But then things kind of unraveled a little bit in a different way. We started learning more about truth and information that was kind of being suppressed about health. So it's kind of taken on a whole different spin now, but it's going really well.
So how long have you been involved with health?
Oh, geez. I have been advocating for natural health or been a part of health probably the better part of my life, really. So
Well, you look
40
very healthy.
years.
You look very healthy. 40
Well,
years.
yeah.
Really?
Well, I
You
was a
think
young athlete. I was a young
oh,
athlete. Yes, I
right.
was a figure skater. I grew up in Canada and I was a figure skater, started very young. So I've been very involved since then.
So with the current situation with COVID, are you getting a lot of requests for different things that you normally wouldn't get? Like, can you give us an example or examples?
Yeah. So actually, I don't know about request as much as I have had a hunger to find out the truth. Um, when the virus started, I was like everybody else. I mean, what were your thoughts when the virus first started? Didn't you feel like, okay, we need to check this out. We need to understand what's going on. Is that what you did?
Well, I think I had it in January last year with my family, and when we were visiting New York, and
Oh,
we were
so you
walking around.
feel like you
I think
had a
we,
pretty good one?
yeah, but I've been involved with herbs and nutrition since I was a child, and my grandfather was an herbologist.
Mhm.
So
Oh, very
right away, I
good.
went to the
Very
store and
interesting.
started collecting things, and we started popping things and drinking things and doing things and walking
Yes.
around Central Park. And at the time, we didn't. I think we heard a little bit about the virus, but we didn't realize to what extremes it was going to end up being.
Right. Well, I probably did similar things. When I started hearing about a virus coming, and mumblings in January, I was paying attention, but, I wasn't really focused on it. And then things started amping up. So, of course, I put my family on a stricter regimen of vitamins. I upped their vitamin D, I upped their vitamin C, I upped our zinc, and I made sure everybody was sticking to their exercise routine. We were eating clean and avoiding sugar like we normally do, but a little bit more diligently. So, when they brought on the quarantine, I was fully compliant, and we didn't have a lot of data on the virus at that time,
I don't
so
think
we
we
didn't
still.
really.
I don't think we do still.
I don't. Well, I think we have what we can see with our eyes, right? So I'm not seeing people dying out front in the streets. I'm not seeing people in the grocery store falling over and dying. So at this point, I can rely on my own senses to make decisions.
Mhm.
But back then, I was compliant and we stayed home. But then I started to see cracks in the story,
Yeah.
Brett. I started to see cracks. I started to see that wasn't lining up. The mask mandate was told at the beginning masks wouldn't work, and then it switched to masks work. I had already had an understanding of viruses and knew that masks wouldn't keep that out. So then red flags started to go up. So that's when my podcast really started to shift, because now I started reaching out to all these professionals. And there were a number of professionals that were willing to put forth their professional opinion, but they were being suppressed on social media. They were being suppressed in the news. And then that's when I was like, okay, something's going on here, because we don't do that in this country. We don't suppress that blatantly information as it's developing, right? This is a new thing. We have new information coming forward by what frontline doctors are seeing. We need that information because we need to pool together and make critical decisions here. But they were suppressing very purposefully one narrative, which was the positive side, the positive results they were getting from treatment protocols, the positive side of information about vitamin D and how that was affecting people. So there was key elements. I was like, why is this information being suppressed? So that's when I really started reaching out to these professionals and bringing them onto my podcast. And that just kind of blew up. That's when I started really being able to dive into studies and have firsthand conversations with professionals that were on the front lines treating patients.
Do you think that this whole thing has become politically healthy?
Oh boy!
The left side of the spectrum or the right side of the spectrum, your health philosophy or belief depends on what party you're from.
Well, that's interesting because I think that there's crossover. I don't think it's so black and white. I've interviewed a lot.
Right? There is a high percentage of both sides.
There is a high percentage. But one thing I discussed with a guest last week was that at this point, there really is one side that believes in freedom. And they're also that side seems to rely on a higher power within themselves, above themselves rather. And they seem to rely, they live their lives in a way where they have faith in something, right? They have faith that things are going to work out. You do the right things, it's going to be okay. And that side's, very adamant about moving forward with business, keeping things open, and it's okay. It's okay. And then we have this other side that seems to feel like they can control things with outside forces. And so when you ask, there is crossover because I have a lot of friends and people and guests that I've had on the podcast who practice acupuncture. And there comes like an idea that if you are in the natural health field, that maybe you're more of a hippy dippy, woohoo type of person. And that's not really the case anymore because there's a large group of people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they don't want the same old answers of pills or surgery or whatever. And if you have the capability to do critical thinking, you've started to put the pieces together at this point. And you realize that there are other ways to achieve health. So it's not so clear cut anymore that, if you're into natural health, you're more on the left. And if you're into, Western medicine, you're more on the right. There's still, I think, larger groups that fit that narrative, but there is some crossover. And I think that's a great way for us to actually build bridges in our relationships with people, because who in their right mind can deny that big pharma has caused the opiate epidemic in this country?
Nobody's talking about
there's certain.
You're not hearing about that.
No.
It's
no.
Because you know what it is? People become hypnotized or brainwashed by what they are ingesting every day from the media. And so it's almost like they just parrot what they hear after a period of time.
Oh, yeah.
The narrative, of course, is, it started. Nobody's even talking how it started anymore.
I know. And, the first rumblings we heard was that it got out of a wet market. Does anybody believe that anymore?
No. Well,
I don't think so.
I think there's a couple things that come to mind on that. One thing is it could have got into a wet market if somebody exposed the wet market from what they had.
Yes.
That's one way, right?
Right. But did it organically come from a wet market?
Well, it came from a lab. It came from a lab, and the United States was involved with developing the COVID, and I don't know why they would want to develop it, study it. I think Fauci was involved with that, if I'm not mistaken, but we're not hearing about that. And there's a lot of Fauci's coming across as this hero, and I don't look at him as a hero. I look at him as the person that started this whole thing. He even got funding from taxpayers' dollars, and the money
to do it
exactly. But we're not hearing about any of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I interviewed Mickey Willis, the maker of Plandemic. I don't know if you've watched that documentary. He did a two-part series on the virus. The first part was Plandemic, and then the second part was Indoctrination. And through his investigative reporting, he found that Fauci actually owns multiple patents on test kits and coronavirus. And this thing goes way deep as far as the corruption and who's getting paid out. And this isn't about conspiracy theory anymore.
People look at the things we're talking about. If you have a different thinking, if you think differently than the consensus of people that believe what, which is this whole thing came from a wet market, which it probably did, but originally from a lab, then what ends up happening is you're looked at funny if you even mention any of these things. You're a conspiracist, like you said.
Right. And I think that it is to the point where we're in such dire straits in this country that we have to just turn the other cheek when we get called that and keep talking, because the truth will come out eventually. The truth will. And you can't go wrong when you're standing on the truth. And there's just far too much evidence that points to nefarious dealings when it comes to the virus. And
the truth is being hid by the media and big pharma.
Absolutely.
And government.
Well, there's six companies that own all of our mainstream media outlets now. 6.
I thought it was more than that.
No, it is 6. So if you break down all the little channels, you can funnel them all into 6 different companies.
Well, I know Fox is owned by a Democratic family.
It is now. Mm-hmm. Right. And I believe that George Soros's son is involved in that channel now as well.
How long do you know that that's been going on for?
I don't know the date on that. I did a post recently, so anybody out there can look at all of my content on Naturally Inspired Podcast on the Facebook group page. And you can go back, and I actually did a post on the 6 companies that control all of our media. And it has a great, it has a great kind of timeline, because each decade it's been shrinking, right? There was at one point hundreds of companies that were putting out our media content, and it just kept shrinking in. And the way that they present the information is so interesting. And if you've ever heard of Edward Bernays, he has a great book about propaganda. He's like the godfather of understanding propaganda. And you can see that the narrative is rolled out every day. These news stations are mostly owned by the same people, and the narrative is decided by somebody those newscasters don't even know. And they get told, this is the headline. This is what's being said. And there's some great videos out there that have been collaged together where you can see different channels, different newscasters on the same day using the exact same phrase. One after the other. It's the same thing. So, and one of the phrases that's being rolled out right now is build back better. Build back better. So just, put that in your mind. If you think that all this stuff is conspiracy theory, I would say, and you're listening, put stuff like that in your mind. Like, I'm just going to keep an eye out for the phrase build back better. And just see how many times you hear that in a day through your mainstream media message.
Build back better.
Build back better.
Is that what Biden and Harris are supposed to do?
Yes. That is, but you can do that with almost anything if you really pay attention. And in our defense, we haven't been set up to be critical thinkers when it comes to taking in our information. We've had it pretty darn good in this country for a long time. And that's quite purposeful, because then we can kind of unplug, sit back, take in our news in a fast food kind of style, where we just turn on the news and we take the word for whoever it is that's telling us. And then we, act accordingly. We show up on voting day and we think we've done our American duty. But in reality, that's not the way our government was set up. I talked with Chris Ann Hall yesterday from Liberty First. She's a constitutional analyst. And she was telling me that our role as citizens is the way the Constitution was designed was for the citizens to provide pushback on government. Government was never set up to rein itself in. It has no duty to rein itself in or keep itself contained. Mm-hmm. That's our job. That's our job as the people. This is a balancing act. And what's happened is we've been kind of, just lackadaisical about it. Everything's been going fine. We're not attending our local city, city council meetings. We don't know what's going on in our school boards. We don't know our legislators. And so we're not creating that pushback. So what's happened is the government has just exploded and flourished while the people have been taking more and more of their tyrannical moves. So it was a really interesting conversation I had with her. I would definitely recommend checking that podcast out that comes out this week.
I really enjoy what you have to say, and I think it's very important that there needs to be another side to what's going on, because when we were in school as kids, we were always sometimes looked upon by the teachers for asking questions, and I was the kind of person that always asked questions. So I always got that look from the teacher, like, and I'm like, well, why am I here to learn if I can't ask questions? How are you going to learn if you can't ask questions and you can't question things and have discussions about them?
Yep.
And
that's exactly it. And that's what's happening in our media today.
I'm not a sheep. I'm not a sheep. I'm sorry, I can't be. It's just not my makeup. And I have a thing with just wanting to know facts and knowing things. I have no problem with something being completely different than what I believe. If it's the truth, it's the truth.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's something we need to accept too, as a majority, is that the truth might not be what we think it is, and that it's okay to look outside, this paradigm, because I think it's scary for a lot of people. It's scary for them to accept that the government is not there for the good of them. I don't think
it really ever has, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe years ago when we formed the Constitution and we had the Bill of Rights, probably then, and then maybe as time has gone by. But I mean, government, they call it politics is the second oldest profession.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not knocking either. I'm not knocking the first profession, by the way.
I know.
Sorry about that. Isn't that terrible? But, I think there's more subjects we can talk about. I have a radio show, and I'd love to have you call into my radio show sometime.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that. Yeah.
Give minutes of what your thoughts are occasionally, and just to keep up to date on, what's going on and have real discussions. Because it seems like we're on the same page with things in a lot of ways. When we got into government, we were supposed to be talking about building the immunity. So I don't know how that happened.
Well, it's kind of like the elephant in the room. It's kind of like how my podcast has changed. I have to say that I'm a little disappointed in some of these leaders that I've followed for years about health and positive thinking and, human potential. I feel like they're ignoring the topic completely. And this is one of the most pivotal times I would say it is the most important time that we have ever lived through in our lifetime in this country.
Oh, it is. It's going to change. Yep. It's going to possibly change all our freedoms.
Exactly. And so if you're not talking about it, I find it odd. If you're over here promoting your next seminar and, rah 2021, lock 2021 in, we're at the brink of civil war here.
It's crazy is I've mentioned that, and I've had people call me out like, what are you talking about? They have no idea.
Whoa. Yeah.
There's a couple of them that are very high people in government.
Wow.
What are you talking about? And I'm like, I haven't elaborated, because I'm like thinking, if you don't get it, what do I need to explain it to you?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's pretty bad if you can't see that we knew there was a great divide anyway with the last election. And even I think Obama didn't bring people together. I think he didn't bring people together like he should have.
No.
I think that's when a lot of tension started.
I think so too. I think it was a lot of talk and then a lot of not do what he talked about.
Well, right? I mean, a lot of people do forget that when he did leave office, and I mean, I can't even imagine what it would be like to clean that mess up. But when he did leave, unemployment was at the lowest it's been in years.
Yes.
I mean, on both terms. And I think he's a great guy. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's funny. I'm sure he's a good-looking guy. But politically, he knew what the hell he was doing.
I wouldn't agree with you. don't think he's a great guy.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he's good to get into a room and tell a few one-liners, and then maybe have a drink, and that's about it. But then when you start getting into political philosophies and stuff, that's where the conversation would change, I think, for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. You know, I do. I know what you mean. You know, there's a lot of actors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of actors out there.
You know, Reagan was an actor, but he did a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you can use those skills in any way you like, you know, but I think there's been the corruption behind the scenes has been so deep for so long, and it's not one-sided. Like with Big Pharma, we talk a lot about Big Pharma on this podcast that I do. And, you know, those ties are on both sides. These pharmaceutical companies are paying, they're the biggest lobbyists, the biggest amount of money paid out, bigger than big oil. Pharma is.
It is.
And then,
even bigger
if you look,
pork, even bigger than pork.
Yeah. If you look at what is filling the commercial breaks on our mainstream media airwaves, who is it?
Big Pharma.
It's Big Pharma.
With the disclosure at the end of every commercial. It's prescription or whatever it is, and you could have these side effects. You know, like
that's right. That's right.
You like to add up to be more of a problem than the actual problem.
That's right. And yes, and we have lifestyle drugs now that, you know, just simply if you don't feel happy, you can go to a doctor and ask by name for the pill that you think will make you happy. And what we're not saying is that these drugs alter your brain chemistry for your entire life. You'll never go back to what you were before you do that. And they're being doled out like Tic Tacs, no big deal. So these are the kinds of discussions that we need to have. And I think it's a great time in our country to have those discussions, because there's a fracture. There's a fracture right now where we can see a little bit of light. And even people who, you know, thought that the government was totally out for their benefit and is very, very, you know, pro humanity and all of that, even if you have the utmost belief in the government, right now, there's a fracture in that landscape where a little bit of light is coming in, because what we're seeing with our eyes is not adding up to what they're telling us.
Well, the stories are all different. Did you know on Christmas Day, New York got, I forget how many airplanes flew into New York to give the, you know, the what's it called? The antidote? What's it called? The injection? What's it called?
Oh, the vaccine?
Vaccine. I call it injection, vaccine, whatever you want to call it.
And
you know, there wasn't enough people working in the facilities because they're told to stay home to administer the antidote,
the vaccines,
so-called antidote. And guess who's getting that injection first?
The politicians.
Well, possibly that we don't know about, but the people that are in drug rehab and are drug addicts.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
And
well, that's interesting.
And then seniors, and then first responders, and then seniors.
Isn't
that interesting?
Well, see, the way I think, you know, which a lot of people may or may not think I'm so crazy, but the reason why they would do that is because there's a high probability that this vaccine will cause illness, and you will have an adverse reaction to it. And they want the people who are maybe not doing so well in their life, that don't have a lot of family support and all of that, they want to test on them first. And that would be, you know, they're not, I don't know. I mean, some of these videos I see with these politicians, these dog and pony shows where they do the fake it's a fake vaccine. They're not actually getting the vaccine. They forget which arm and they got it in. You know, it's like, how stupid do you think we are? How stupid do you think we are?
There's a lot. Now, I don't know for sure. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some politicians that are taking it, I would say.
I would say so.
So the ones that are getting campaign funds for their campaign.
Right. Right. Well, it's all optics.
You got to drink the Kool-Aid too if you're going to get the check, right? So I mean, there's probably those politicians that are doing that, and there's politicians that really do believe. Now I know somebody locally that is a former mayor, and he got it early on and we didn't think he was going to make it.
Oh, wow.
I guess one of the shows we got to talk about, maybe having you come back, is possibly the high risk people and what we need to lower the high risk people. But a lot of people don't really want to do the things they need to do. And we won't get into that today because it's a long subject.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
needed to do, which is what originally we started talking about, lifestyle. And a lot of people just want the magic pill or the magic shot, and they don't want to have to discipline themselves
do the work,
eating too much sugar or exercising or drinking water or going to bed when at a decent time. Those types of things, that people don't want to do those things. They want to do what they want to do. And
that's right.
I don't think
and that's fine if you want to live with the consequences of that. But I think that's a great topic for the next time we chat, is personal responsibility and the issue that we have with that in this country, because we have a big issue with personal responsibility. We've lifted that through our school systems, through our so-called fight for equality. There's a lot of factors that went into play that we've lost this accountability for personal responsibility.
Well, and people think a lot of people think they're entitled.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the younger generation. It's not so much the older over 30 generation. At least I hope not. And they're not entitled.
Well, if there's no consequences every time you screw up, there's no consequence. Why wouldn't you feel entitled?
Well, yeah. And a lot of people want to be taken care of. They don't want to go to work. They want to get that check every month, because I've talked to a lot of students that want to just why can't we just do online study and get a check every month? Not have to go to work.
I don't think these people understand that when someone pays you, they own you.
I don't think they care. I don't think they care. I think they want to be taken care of, and they want to live a socialist, communistic type life. They've been brainwashed. I think they've been brainwashed by a lot of the schools. And I'm going to take heat. I'm going to take a lot of heat for that, but I believe that.
Yeah. No, I believe that 100%. I pulled my kids out of school. I pulled my kids out of school 3 years ago because of this very reason.
So you agree with me?
Absolutely. My kids were in a charter school. They were in a charter school, and I thought it was started by parents, but eventually it was infiltrated by the school district, and with their staff coming over and starting taking positions that teachers were retiring and leaving, and the whole culture changed. It wasn't a charter school anymore, and any pushback was greeted with a mob mentality. Quite honestly, I say that the education system is the new mafia. I do. And I don't apologize for it, because I've experienced trying to battle a school board.
I have a lot of my mother's from the educational area of life. She was in education for 45 years. And I got to know a little bit about different things in, the school system, hearing from her, knowing people. I know everybody that pretty much has been involved with that school for years, and even the new teachers I probably don't even know, but I know some of them. So I grew up in that situation of knowing a little bit more, because she took care of principals and teachers and parents. So I heard a lot of things from her, and we didn't agree on a lot of things. But I'll tell you this: I think everything needs to be non-political. I think kids go to school to get an education, and it is about the kids. But I think that this has become political now, again, like everything else, unfortunately. And we need to get away from that, go back to what we teach. They teach.
Yes.
And by the way, I love teachers, and we're honoring 36 teachers at an event coming up. Just amazing stories of what they're trying to do, and my hat goes off to them. So I'm not picking on teachers by saying that. I'm just saying, let's keep an even playing field. And this will be more discussions about this, because our kids need to learn and think for themselves. They don't need to be taught to believe something at an early age. They need to be just taught the basic things. But we'll talk more about that another time. Is there a good website that people can go to get information to watch your podcast?
Yeah, you can find me at livenaturallyinspired.com. That's actually a new platform that I've moved my content onto, because I am fearing I'm anticipating being completely censored, because a lot of what I say gets shadow banned or, I'm unable to post at times. So I am moving my content over there at livenaturallyinspired.com. You can still connect with me personally on Facebook at Tammy Cuthbert Garcia. I'm on Instagram. If you type in Naturally Inspired Podcast, you're going to find me.
It's very nice meeting you, Tammy. I heard such nice things about you. And
I heard such nice things about you too, and the mutual relationship that we have with Yvette. She said glowing things about you.
Well, so. Also about you, and somebody that I trust her 100%. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Enjoy San Diego and say hi to the ocean for me.
And you're in Colorado.
I'm in Colorado. I got the Rockies behind me, but I have no ocean.
You have lakes. You have lakes, right?
I do have lakes.
What area of Colorado are you in?
Northern Colorado, right in between Boulder and Fort Collins. And we're on a little farm here.
Oh, how beautiful. We'll have to talk about that farm, because that's one of my visions, is to have a farm.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I love the farm life.
Very cool. Okay, Tammy. Very nice to see you. And we look forward to doing more interviews, God willing. And take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you so much, Brett. Have a great